What's up guys, Kaidom here, and in this video we will be taking a look at some of the new updates to both examples and try to explain a little bit about the changes that have happened. So first thing here, we have the boots added to both examples, and we also have a secure container. Now, your secure container can of course act as a container if you don't have any like if you don't have a backpack, for example. You can still get items there. You can change the size of this container. If you go to examples, a multiplayer example, widgets, and in-game inventory here, you can of course change the number of rows and columns. And container ID here is very important to basically stay at this unique ID, because it's a sync between client and server. So make sure you don't change this container ID. The other update is a new kind of container. If I go here, we have our standard container, one big container with like a set amount of columns and rows, and of course you can have items there. And we have a body, or basically a player or AI container. So for example, if I kill this AI, I can loot the body, and as you can see, now it has a more specific container layout. And you can actually change this. You can add more slots if you want. So it resembles more or less your main player's main container. You can take items here, and you can also add items. Maybe grab a backpack here, for example, and like do like something like this. So this is our backpack, and I can even transfer my entire backpack to the body here, and of course you can put things in it, for example here, and you can like install it here, like equip it to your main character, and yeah. So and this of course is synced between players. So if another player is looking at your or like is looting the same body or player or whatever, they can also see what you're doing. And of course, if they do something like take something from the body, you will be able to see it as well. So the other changes are, now of course this this works between players as well. If you kill a player, you will be able to loot them the same way. The next thing is crafting. Here we have materials. If you can pick up like a couple materials here. So there's a data table specified for specific for materials, and you can add as many materials as you want, and these are just examples. So if I go here, crafting armor, and I'll show you later how to add how to set it up, but essentially here you can see what is the name of the material needed, how much you need. Like in this case we need 15, and how much you have. So here we have 60. So material 1, as you can see here, we have 60. So things that you can craft are or like things that you can't craft are grayed out and you can't interact with them, but things that you can craft, you can like select them and, you know, craft whatever you want. So let's go ahead and craft our boot, and we can click on start craft, and we have this pending item that I can't interact with, but I can cancel the crafting anytime I want. And of course I can start crafting, and if I close the inventory accidentally, for example, it gets cancelled. So let's go ahead and craft our boots, and once the crafting is done, you're going to see here that it's going to take 12 from our first material here and 8 from material 2. And as you can see, now we have 48 and 52 materials left, and of course it updates as it's done, and I can of course equip this boots, as you can see. Of course, same thing here, weapons. So for the way to set it up, first of all, we're going to go to system here, and then we have a crafting or like crafting ingredients, and here we have all our materials here. So these are the simple items, simple pickups, like any other pickup. And the way it's done is that, for example, if I want to specify how much, how many, or like what kind of ingredients, or the recipe in general for a certain item, I can go, for example, for armor, and this boot right here that we just crafted, you need to scroll down, you need to specify the ingredients data table. So you can have another data table if you want, but by default it is set to the crafting ingredients data table that we just opened. And here we crafting materials, and normally you would have it like cleared like so. You have time to craft. We can like put like 2 seconds, for example, and I can add whatever materials needed. For example, let's say that boots take 3 materials to craft. Let's go ahead and expand those, and here you need to specify the IDs from this data table right here. So for example, if I need material 3, so you need to take the row name here and make sure that the item ID is similar to the row name here. So for example, I can take mat 3, and I can specify that I need, for example, 5, and then maybe like 10 from material 1, and like maybe material 5 I'll take like 2. And of course this value right here is for time to craft. So if I play right now and of course go to the crafting armor, you're gonna see here that I need 5, 10, and 2. And of course, since I have no materials here in my inventory, it's grayed out and it says you're here. Now for indicating what can be crafted in each container here, you need to select your container, go to the details panel, and in here you can select a station name, which is the name that we see here, and then of course you can add items to craft. So you can just click on the plus sign here, and here we have 8 items. So whenever you click add here, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy these. So I'm gonna clear here, for example, and I can click on the plus sign here. I can expand this, and I can say, for example, I want to craft a helmet here, and I can specify where this helmet is. So it's in the armor data table. So I can like even add let's just add armor here. So armor from data table, and if I click save here, I can, as you can see here, it adds those 2 items. You can right click here, create a child blueprint, or duplicate this one. So this is a child of this, and you can like open it here, go to class defaults, and of course you have the same thing. You can set them here and then place the blueprint in the world. So that's crafting. The other thing here is equipment mesh data. This data table is used now in both examples, multiplayer and single player example. And here is where you specify your equipment sockets or a skeletal mesh if an item is equipped, and then you equip a skeletal mesh like a helmet, for example, or gloves. So for rifle here, now this ID needs to be the same and where the weapon is. For example, rifle here is our standard rifle pickup here, and this data table is used to grab whatever the equipment slot that needs to be used for equipment, so for attaching the weapon to the player. So we have rifle socket here, rifle holder 1, rifle holder 2. Now these sockets, you need to add them in your skeletal mesh if you have different weapons that need different sockets. But by default, we have rifle socket here. It's already added to the skeletal mesh, or like to the player skeleton. And for things like helmet, armor, gloves, etc., you don't need a socket, of course, but you need to specify like a skeletal mesh here. And of course, when you equip a skeletal mesh, the difference here is that it has basically the same skeleton tree as your main character. So for it to like follow the main animation or like character animation. Now, before we continue to another update, I forgot to show you how the AI works, how to like add equipment to it. But before that, we have this MP container, our standard container, and if you want to have the other one here instead, like the more advanced one, you can go to system here, pickup system, MP container, and then we have advanced loot box. And this is our loot box here. So if I put it here, for example, I can go loot it, and it will have the advanced loot box. Alright, so for AI here is pretty straightforward. All you need to do here is on begin play, make sure you have this on begin play. We call the parent begin play, make sure we are the authority, and then call the equip AI by slot. So you simply specify what slot you want to equip to the AI, and then specify the item ID from the data table and what data table. And here we're equipping 4 things. For example, if I want the AI to have like boots, for example, I can go here, select shoes, and then of course the item ID here is boots from the armor data table. And now if I go ahead and loot this guy, I can actually see that he has boots equipped. So as you can see, he has boots as shown there. So the other addition to the multiplayer example is saving and loading. So you can like press M and you can bring this menu here, and you have like resume, quit, and then you have save and load. So you can save your equipment inventory and main inventory, of course, and your equipped items, and you can of course specify your username here for saving and loading the data. So since we're talking about a multiplayer here, we need different usernames for saving and loading the data. So it works for multiple people or multiple players, of course, and then you could perhaps do something like when the game starts, you can send the save data to the player. So if they disconnect, for example, or basically quit the game, you can save their data, and then later when they connect again, you can like load their data. But here we have it just on demand, basically. So in our player controller here, we have a component called MP Save System. This component handles saving and loading your state or equipment, and you can call it here whenever you want. Server request, it's a server event that is in MP Save System, and you can pass in your username. So now of course this is just a temporary solution, like having the player to specify their username, but you could have something more convenient, like their like a database with their username, and you can like use that to save and load, and you don't like you don't have to wait for them to ask for it. But for this example, you have to ask the server to save and load, and it's done here in this component, and it has like a save and load MP state. And here we have two players. Let's go ahead and grab a backpack here, shoes maybe, and yeah, like an apple. So this guy has these things, and this guy perhaps could grab like a pistol and also a backpack, and let's grab some money, and let's actually transfer that money to our secure container here, and then grab like an apple as well, and maybe some armor. Alright, so we got these two players here. So what you want to do here is let's grab client 1 here and press M, and I'm gonna set like the username to maybe Kai1, for example, and then I'm gonna click on save here, and as you can see it says server like MP state saved, and this guy needs of course a different username, otherwise we will be overriding the other save here. So Kai2 here, and I'm gonna click on save here, and I can for example close the game, and I can play again. And let's see what happens here when I press M and load the state. So I'm gonna press M here. So this is client 1, and they saved their state with Kai1, and I'm gonna click on load. And as you can see, it loaded their state, and both players can see it. And same thing for this guy. So this guy is Kai2, and load your state, and there you go. So you can see here that they have money here, apple. And so there's one last thing I need to talk about, and it is the special containers. Now special containers are a widget where of course you have multiple containers. Now these two are GSI containers, and you need to have the class settings here. You need to have the GSI special widget interface added, and then you need to handle its function here, if I can find it, interface here, get list of containers, and you need to return these containers like we saw with the advanced loot box. So you need to return these containers so they can be recognized, and of course you can hear you get this event as well. So when an item is created with a special container, you do get this reference, and you can like handle whatever events you want. So in our case, we handled for basically putting a suppressor, for example. So if I go here, so if I grab the suppressor here, I can basically install the suppressor, and of course the image here changes. Now you can install it, and it works just fine. So this so suppressor to muzzle, this is handled in the MP jig container, or like a MP jig component. But of course, changing the imager and things like that are handled here separately. So when the item gets equipped, we resize the item if possible, and we update the image. Now, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing that we need to discuss here is in the data table and how the server sees special containers. Because in case you didn't know, in server, for example, in a dedicated server, widgets don't exist. So we need to tell, we need to set up our data table or our info so that the server does know how a certain special container looks like. So we know that it's two containers and they're both like equipped to, but server needs to know that somehow. And this is, and of course this is important so it works in terms of like installing attachments. And of course you can have them either equipped to or inventory. Equipped to means that it will ignore the size, so you can install like a 1x2 suppressor. It's fine. However, if it was an inventory, you can, because this is set at 1x1. So in the data table we have our weapon here, and if we take the rifle, we have the special container set here to a special container widget to SC attachment, which is our special container here. So what you need to do for the server to know that this has a special container and it needs to process events for like moving some, like a suppressor for example, to the weapon. First you need to make this a container, and you need to do it here. So is container needs to be true. So now the weapon is a container, so it can contain attachments, etc. And here in the special container dimensions, you need to specify the dimensions of this special container in data form, essentially. So -1 means it's an equipped to container, meaning that it shouldn't care about the size of the item being added to that special container. So like I said, a suppressor is a 1x2, and you could have a slot, an equipped to slot that is 1x1. So you shouldn't really care when you equip things, like it's a 1x1, but if it's an equipped to, you get to equip it regardless of its size. So -1 indicates that it's a equipped to container, like here. And same thing, so we're like specifying that we have two containers, which are these two. And of course, we're setting them to -1 because it's an equipped to, not an inventory. It's an equipped to slot that can. But if we go to the armor here, if we go to the tactical rig here, it has the same thing. It's a container, true, and special container is this one right here. Now this is a inventory type. These are not equipped to. So this one, for example, it's a 2x1 inventory. 2x1 inventory. So you can't put like a helmet here because it's just too big, right? But if it was an equipped to, you could. But in this case we can't because it's set as an inventory type here, and it's a 2x1. And in here, so we have a 1x1, 2x1, 2x1, and a 1x1. So 4 containers, and we need to specify that in the data table. So first of all, mark it as a container here, here true, and then add special container dimensions. Click the plus sign, add 4 values. A 1x1 dimensions x and y are 1x1. Second one is a 2x1, as you can see here. X, this is x, so 1x2 for columns and rows. So column x, rows 2. Here, same thing, 1x2, and then the fourth one is a 1x1. So this is very important to set up so the server knows what you're talking about, and just know about the that special container, because like I said, you know about it because it's a widget. You created it, but the server doesn't know what a widget is. Dedicated server mostly doesn't know what a widget is, so you kind of need to provide it data form. So another update is containers with a capacity, and that is applied for this multiplayer example in reloading, so we can have a magazine with a capacity, and I'll show you later how to do that in the data table. But for now, we also have special containers working for weapons. And in this case, we're using it to have a magazine here. So I can like put 5 bullets in here. I can then move it here, and now I have 5 bullets in my weapon. 5 times, and as you can see there, it says no ammo and gun. And I can, of course, add 30 bullets here, and I can remove reload here, but I also added a manual reload, well, by pressing R. And you have the mag needs to be in your tactical rig, and now you can like press R, and the character should reload their weapon. And as you can see here, now we have this guy. We reloaded with this one, and the old one that was the weapon is now in our tactical rig with 0 bullets. Now I can, of course, shoot like 30 bullets, of course. And as you can see, it updates here, and we can also see it at the magazine. I can remove it, of course, and use another mag if I want. And of course, since we're talking about special containers, you can now, in the multiplayer example, we can also have a backpack that is a special container. As you can see, this container has 2 sections. The upper one with the 5 by 5 and 5 by 2. So if you need a special container as a backpack, you can do that. So for the magazine here, if we go to, we'll take a look at both the magazines and the attachment, or not the attachment, the backpack. So in the attachment data tables, we have the magazine here. And as you can see, max stack here is set to 30, and it is marked as a container. So if something is a container and also has a mag stack, will be considered a container with like a capacity, such as a magazine, of course. And here I just set the container dimensions by 1 because I only need 1 slot. I think in another update I will actually add a capacity value to this data table. We'll actually destruct and do that properly, so you can have like different ammo types in one magazine. That will be for a future update. For the backpack here, I can go to armor here, and for so we have two backpacks now. The normal backpack with like 5 by 4, like 5 by 5, and the other backpack will have a special container. So select backpack here, and this one is a container, of course, and it is has container dimensions 5 by 6, and it doesn't have any special container, so it's not a special container. Whereas this backpack number 2 here is also a container, but it has a special container. So when you have a special container, this one gets cancelled. So this doesn't matter right here. I can set it to 0, 0. I don't care. It doesn't matter. What will be used is the special container. So if we go to the special container here, so a special container is just a widget containing other GSI containers. So this one has 2 GSI containers, and I think I prefer special containers more than the standard container, because you have access to the container settings here, so you can directly customize this one, and we'll see that with the magazine later. But here we have two GSI containers, a vertical box, a spacer, and I can set the allowed items here. I can customize this more in details. And of course, all you need here is just add your containers. Go to the event graph here. Make sure you have your GSI special widget interface added. If you don't, then you click on here. Once you add this interface, you will have 2 functions. The first one is this one. So you need to return all the containers that you added, GSI 1 and GSI 2. So you should have like this. You just do make array, and then you add more pins, and then you connect your containers like so. And then you will have another event here. I don't think I have it added here. Oh, see, I do. So you will have this event set item reference, and this will give you the reference of the item owning the special container. And in our case here is the backpack item. So I can use this event right here to like maybe initialize some items or like events. So for example, if I want to keep track of when an item gets double clicked, maybe I want to show something, I can grab the GSI reference one, which is this one, and I can like do bind, or I can grab both, why not? Let's just use the bind on both of them. So bind, event, double click, for example, So I can like bind it here for both of them, and I can grab a pin from event right here and do add custom. I can just leave the name right there. I can do like print. You can also make sure that it's left mouse button or right mouse button if you want, but in this case I'm just gonna go and show the item name here. So git item name, and this is the item that we double clicked, and I can perhaps just print the name here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and change the color. So for example, if I grab this backpack right here, which has both or like the special container, I can, for example, get this suppressor, and I can double click on it, and as you can see, AR suppressor just prints out the name. Now for the weapon special container, let's go ahead and go here, rifle. Now rifle has a special container, which is of course the attachments window, and this magazine right here, if we go to the supported item types, it supports a weapon attachment in general. Now we can add more types to be like more specific, but what I like to do here is just have weapon attachment as a type for every attachment. If you can see here, suppressor is also a weapon attachment, so I don't have to like create a type for every item. I can just specify one type, and I can go here to only support these IDs, and I can enter all the IDs that I want to support. For example, mag. If I have another mag, I can just say mag 2 here. If I have another mag, AK mag, M4 mag, etc. And muzzle, of course, I can add muzzle. I can add suppressor, any ID of a certain attachment that can go on this widget right here. So in this case, we have it set to mag, and this one muzzle. So even though it's a weapon attachment and it is supported, it has to also be this specific ID or one of these specific IDs. So that's how you set up special containers, and I will actually do a video that explains more in depth how to use special containers, and we will probably make some new items using special containers. Finally here, we'll take a look at the offline example here. So I'm gonna go to map here, I'm gonna open that up, go ahead and save, and the offline example is a little bit similar to the multiplayer example. You can press V to switch between first and third person, and of course now you can actually equip weapons and items like physically, similar to the multiplayer example, just that it's local player. So yeah, we have crafting as well here. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. There will be more videos on the future. I'm thinking about making some tutorials on how to make for example, a multiplayer game from scratch using Jigsaw. So we will not be using the examples at all. We'll be like using the Jigsaw Inventory from scratch basically. So I think that will be a nice way to teach how the system works and how you can like do some interesting things with it. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them below, and until then, stay safe, and catch you later. Goodbye.